Todd Barclay.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise to speak on the second reading on the drug and alcohol testing of community-based offenders and Bailees legislation bill. Just in response to one of the questions raised by the last speaker, Mr Speaker, I just want to provide a clarification. Within the law that was passed yesterday for returned offenders, there is a clause for special conditions that can be applied. One of those special conditions could be in relation to drug and alcohol testing, so it is in fact covered by the laws that were passed yesterday, Mr Speaker. The important part of this piece of legislation, Mr Speaker, is that it helps ensure conditions in relation to community-based offenders and Bailees who are subject to being prohibited to use drug and alcohol substances, that in fact when they're released from prison they actually comply with those conditions, and it gives police and corrections more flexibility to monitor and in fact test offenders who are being suspected of using the substances that they're being forbidden to use, Mr Speaker. So it helps the conditions being met on a number of levels. First, because it's an obligation for a start of the offender not to use the substance in many cases. We know that 2/3 of prisoners have substance abuse problems, and around half of all crimes that are committed by somebody under the influence of either drug or alcohol substances, Mr Speaker. So it helps actually reinforce one of the conditions of their release, but also it helps to support them stay away from one of their drivers of crime. And we know that for so many offenders, drug and alcohol abuse is a major factor. So it's an assistance for them in terms of their rehabilitation too, Mr Speaker. But thirdly, it also protects the victims. Calvin Davis and I were today sitting in on 4 parole board hearings up at Rimutaka, and of the 4, 3 of those hearings were in relation to offenders that had committed crimes under the influence of either drug or alcohol abuse, Mr Speaker. So, and a major factor that was coming through there from the convener of the parole board and the other 2 members sitting on there was they were trying to extract a view around how these offenders, should they be released back into the community, were going to be prevented from falling into the same patterns of a crime again. And a major factor was around how they could convince the parole board that they wouldn't be under the influence of drugs or alcohol or fall back into that pattern, Mr Speaker. So this piece of legislation is very important in relation to that. Just to touch on another point that the previous speaker made with relation to sexual crimes, the increase in reported crimes, that is right. There has been an increase in reported sexual violence-related crimes from a number of factors, as the Minister of Police was describing today in question time. We've created an environment through our preventative approach to justice that encourages more victims to come forward when they have been a victim of a sexual crime. So obviously as part of that, the reported numbers are going up, and that is a reflection of that, Mr Speaker. And we're taking sexual crimes very seriously, Mr Speaker, so I think the flippant remarks by the opposition were a bit unfounded. Last week, in conclusion, Mr Speaker, I'd just like to offer my support of this bill. Thank you.